Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Darrell George, and I am actually a recently retired city manager of 16 years with the city of Duarte. So, well, I only bring that up because there's probably a correlation to me also being the new chair of the board here. So I guess when you retire, that's what happens. But I'm really honored to be the chair of the CCMF board, the City County Management Fellowship Board here at USC in the Price School. And certainly looking forward to our afternoon with the Assemblywoman, and I'll introduce her in a bit, for the benefit of the board, the students, the school. And this is really a great opportunity in our Lunch and Learn series where we try and connect the academic world with the real world. And what better opportunity than today to speak, to hear from an assembly member that certainly knows a lot about what's going on up in Sacramento, and then also local connections too. So I know it'll be a wonderful session. Today, CCMF has partnered with Keenan and Associates, and I'll introduce a representative from Keenan in a bit, as our major sponsor. Keenan has been a wonderful sponsor of CCMF over the years, and allows us, as a volunteer board and organization, to bring, again, events like this to you. In addition to Keenan, other sponsors are the Assemblywoman herself, and we thank you for that participation. The JPIA, the Joint Powers Insurance Authority, headed up by John Schull. He could not be here today, but I wanted to give a shout out to the JPIA. They're going to be a major sponsor for our upcoming city manager and residents discussion that we'll have, and we'll keep you apprised of that. And then also Trepepe Smith. They are kind of a marketing and public relations firm who assists us in handling our website and other social media types of things that keep the CCMF open and available for people to view online. And in fact, speaking of being online, today we're trying out a live stream of this discussion through Facebook and through the Price School on their website. So hopefully we've got people watching out there on their screens. I'd like to just a couple quick thank yous. Obviously to our board of directors, particularly Karen Herrera and John Kiesler, who are key individuals in assisting us today in putting this on through all of this work behind the scenes. I'd also like to thank Cindy Panetta, who's our liaison with the fellows. I'd like to thank, let's see, I got a whole list here, and I apologize for taking some time, but as I said, Cindy Panetta. I'd like to also thank Harley Ham and her team, Katie Maloney, Carla Barajas, and also Christy Patton, Dominic Aleto, and then Jonathan in the back here, Jonathan Schwartz and his team, who are handling the live stream, including Corey Hayden and Layla and Jose, who are the student workers today. Oh, and also, more importantly, Lucia, who is our main point here at the Price School. I want to thank her for all her hard work, Lucia Saavedra. With that, I would like to introduce now Assemblywoman Blanca Rubio, who was elected in November 2016 to represent California's 48th Assembly District, which includes the cities of Azusa, Baldwin Park, Bradbury, City of Industry, Covina, Duarte, El Monte, Glendora, Irwindale, Monrovia, West Covina, my goodness, and the San Gabriel Valley unincorporated areas of Los Angeles County. One of her greatest honors was to have 18 bills signed into law during her first term in the Assembly, making Blanca one of the more productive and active legislators in Sacramento. Before coming to the Assembly, Blanca spent 16 years as a teacher, so good connection between academia and the real world, so that'll be exciting to hear. And 20 years in elected office, serving on the Valley County Water Board and Baldwin Park Unified School District. I apologize, Blanca, before I have you come up and speak, I do have to introduce Laurie LoFranco from Keenan and Associates to come in and say, Laurie, can you just come up and say a few words? And I apologize I didn't get to you first, but then I won't have to do the introduction again.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Laurie LoFranco from Keenan, and we've been involved with the USC Price School of Business for a number of years. It's such a privilege for us to see what goes on here and how exciting these presentations are. This is a real privilege to be here with Assemblywoman Rubio today and to sponsor this event. We are an insurance broker that does just public sector agencies. We have 1,000 agency clients in California, about 80% of the school districts and community colleges. We do not do private schools, but we are really happy to support education and to support these events. So thank you for letting us be a part of this. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Laurie. Assemblywoman?
Yes, thank you. So let's see. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Assemblywoman Blanca Rubio, and I represent the 48th Assembly District. He gave you kind of a rundown of all the cities that I represent, but just for the purposes of discussion, each Assembly member represents about 500,000 people. And each senator is about 1 million people. So there's 80 assembly members and 40 senators. And I have the privilege of representing the East San Gabriel Valley. And in 2018, now Senator Susan Rubio, who is my sister, represents the whole entire San Gabriel Valley. And I want to share that when Susan was elected in 2018, we became the first sisters ever in the history of California to serve. And folks are saying concurrently. I'm like, no, ever to serve. There has been about 4,500 assembly males, and there's I was number 154, and there's been, now we have 166 women that have been in the assembly, which is a big deal, you know, being that California is one of the most progressive states in the country, and yet, you know, our numbers are very, very small in terms of representation for women. But not only is it important for you, obviously, to know what's going on in Sacramento, I want to share a little bit of my story. There's some friends in the audience that have heard me speak before, but it's important for you to know my story to kind of understand why I do what I do. So I'm the oldest of 5 siblings. I was born in Juarez, Mexico. And Juarez, if any of you read the news, it's one of the most dangerous cities in the whole world in terms of drug cartels. It's right on the border of El Paso, Texas. My dad is going to be 80 this year. He's been in and out of the country since he was 19 years old through the Bracero program in the beginning. And when we were young, we were little, we lived in Juarez, and my dad was crossing back and forth. He finally decided, hey, I'm going to take you guys across the border. We went to a little town called Weenie, Texas, which is on the border of Louisiana and Texas. As you can imagine, in that part of the world, because it's a whole different world, you know, I didn't look like, you know, my neighbors. And my dad was working, building bridges. It was in the Port Arthur area of Louisiana, and I just remember when we were little, every Sunday was family Sunday. We went to a park. We were always somewhere on Sundays. Well, in this particular case, we were at a fair, and we were all kind of sitting around, and I remember just looking up, and there's some men in uniform talking to my dad. Well, my dad was a bracero, but the program had ended, but we continued, and I joke that even when the program ended, we still needed to eat, so my dad kept going back and forth, working in the United States. And so we didn't have our papers to be in the country. And so it was immigration who was talking to my dad, and I was 6 years old, so I remember bits and pieces, but I remember for sure that they said, you have to go get all your stuff, and you guys are leaving. So we were deported from Texas, went back to Juarez, and again, if you read anything about Juarez, there's no way folks are living there, but it's not a life. It really isn't a life, especially for women, especially for folks that are trying to make a decent life. There's a group of folks in Juarez, they're called ninis in Spanish, ni trabajan ni van a la escuela. They don't go to school and they don't work. If you work, you earn about $5 a week, right? If you go to school, your hope is to make $5 a week. You know, in the future, I mean, I'm sure it's a different amount, but the reality for those groups is that, you know, it really is not a living to go to work every day, and it's not a living to try and get an education and become some profession. And so folks over there are either trying to make it or they're part of the whole drug cartel situation. Some of them are unintended and some of them are, there because they want to. But I tell you that because that's the reason that my parents were like, there's no way that we're going to be able to live there. So we snuck back into the country, ended up in downtown LA. I went to Belmont High School. My dream school was always USC, so maybe someday I'll still be able to go to USC. But because I'm down the street, USC was part of my neighborhood. So I went to Belmont High School, but we snuck back into the country. It was in 1977. I've been accused of killing Elvis because it was the day that Elvis died. We arrived in the country on August 16, 1977. That's when Elvis died. And so we snuck back in, so we were undocumented. And again, I'm the oldest. I have my sister Susan, the senator, is a twin with my brother Robert. And then the youngest sister, Sylvia, who is also trying to make history. A little plug for her. Sylvia is also running for state assembly. And she's running in the 57th district, the Whittier area. So and the election's on March 3rd, in case you live over there. So call your friends. But Sylvia's running for assembly as well. So I told you that Susan and I made history by being the first two sisters. When Sylvia gets elected on Tuesday, we will be the only sisters in the country to serve. So it's a big deal just in itself, right? But to add to that we were deported and undocumented when we arrived to the country. And some folks, we hear it all, the rhetoric, especially in Sacramento. Because I'm from LA, I've never really felt, any kind of discrimination because all of my neighbors were all the same. My consultant, everybody has to have a consultant. When I started running for office, says, "What's your story?" And I was like, what story? Like, what are you talking about? And he was like, no, what's special about you? And I was like, I'm a teacher. I was just trying to figure out. And then he's like, no, start from the beginning. And then I told him the story that I just told you. He's like, that's the story. And I'm like, what do you mean that's the story? The point he was trying to make is that it's not usual in the state of California, but because I grew up in downtown LA, all of my neighbors and my friends were all in the same situation we were. Sylvia, my youngest sister, who will be elected on Tuesday, that you have to go vote for, was the only one that was born in Texas. She was born in El Paso, Texas. And so she was born in Texas. However, when we got deported, guess who went with us? Sylvia. So even though she was a U.S. citizen, Sylvia was deported as well. But anyway, so all of our neighbors had the same basic story. We were, in this case, undocumented, but Sylvia was documented. So it was just a whole kind of confusion for everybody, but it didn't matter. We were young, we didn't care, we didn't know the difference. And so growing up, we hung around, with our friends. I went to Belmont High School, as I pointed out. When I was in high school, now, let me back up. With being not born in this country and being an immigrant, the language obviously was not English, so we didn't speak English. We learned here, but when I was in high school, I wanted to go to college, and I went to the counselor. I was like all excited. I want to go to this place called college, and literally the counselor says to me, "Honey, you're just gonna get pregnant and get married. College is not for you. How about we put you in a home ec program?" So he wanted me in the kitchen, basically. And so I spoke English, but not to the degree where, I spoke English and I didn't have the experience that I have now, because I would have had a whole different conversation with that counselor if he would have told me that now. So he basically had decided that I was not going to be anything other than, a housewife or, whatever, you plug in the, the blank. And he did the same exact thing to my sister Susan. And so growing up was difficult, but we didn't know it was hard. Because again, everybody in my neighborhood was the same. So it's now that I look back and I'm like, that was not cool. But because like I said, I had never felt discriminated against, because that was just who we were. But now the reason we're here is for me to talk about Sacramento a little bit. Fast forward, I became a water board member in 1997. So we became documented when I was 13. Sylvia helped us get our status. Whole different rules then, but I won't get into that much there, but Sylvia was the reason that we were able to fix our status. We became documented when I was 13. I became a citizen in 1994, and then I ran for my very first office in 1997. So I was like, all right, let's do this. 3 years later, I was running for office and was lucky enough to be elected to a water board. A very good friend of mine, Albert Robles, who's the mayor of Carson, he and I worked at the city of Vernon together, and he was like, hey, you should run, and I would complain about the water. You know, we all like to complain. We complained about the water, and he's like, well, do something about it. And I was like, no, I want to complain, like, leave me alone. But he was just like, you know, he gave that whole cliche, like, if you're not going to do anything about it, you're part of the problem. And I was like, fine, whatever. And so eventually he did convince me well, I was kind of convinced, but he encouraged me to run for office. My very first election, I had no idea what I was doing. I had never even volunteered in a campaign. Maybe some of you have volunteered. Show of hands, how many of you have volunteered in campaigns? Yeah, when I ran, I had never, ever, I had no idea what was going on. But so he said, look, here's a list of voters, just go knock on doors. And I was like, but what do I tell them? And he's like, we'll help you. I think I had $1,000. He helped me create like a card and, just knock on doors and talk to them. I'm like, about what? Well, like, what do you want to do? So I was knocking on doors. I didn't have a team. Now we all have teams. I had no idea that you needed a team. But, because that's how new I was. I had no idea. So walking on doors, and then my sisters were like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm running for office. And they're like, what? So eventually they were like, oh, okay, well, let's help you. But we had really no foundation then. Anyway, so I ran for office, won my very first election by 18 votes. Yeah, well, I was hooked. I was like, by 18 votes, and all I did was knock on doors. And so I learned early on, kind of, for those of you that are interested in running for office, take this to heart. There is nothing better than direct voter contact. That's what that means. I knocked on doors and talked to as many people as I could. I do have some strengths. My mom says that caigo bien, which means I'm easy. I don't know, on the eyes or on the, that right away you take a liking to me. That's what that means. And so when people open the door, if they open the door, they were mine. I knew that I could communicate. I communicate in English and Spanish. And then at that point, I was barely going, I decided to go back to school. I started going to East Los Angeles College. So I was at ELAC. And was elected to my first office, like I said, in 1994, to my water board. Fast forward, I ended up getting my AA from ELAC, transferred to Azusa Pacific University. I have a bachelor's degree in business, and then there was a teacher shortage in 2000. I was working for the Baldwin Park Unified School District at the time, and there was a teacher shortage, and all they needed was a degree and a pulse. And I was like, I got both of them. So I literally went from my HR, I have a business degree. My goal in life was to be in human resources. And so I was in the HR office at Baldwin Park Unified School District on Friday, and they're like, you should teach. And I was like, okay. And so on Monday, I started teaching kindergarten. And I was like, I have to tell you, the best thing that happened to me was that I knew what I didn't know. A lot of my colleagues, my teachers, friends were like, yeah, of course we know that, And I was like, I don't, can you tell me? And so it was really easy for me, because I didn't know, to ask for help, and was able to become twice Teacher of the Year. And for me, to be able to really learn, not just from my teaching, but to learn from students, but be able to give back to kids that looked like me. So I became a teacher, and then I ran for the school board because I was mad at the school board. They weren't doing what I thought they should be doing, so I ran for school board. I was elected to the school board in 2003. Yes, 2003. Spent 13 years elected as a school board member. But in the meantime, I had a real job, because those positions don't pay, except for the water board. If you run for office, run for a water board. I was making $2,500 stipend from the water district, and then I left the water district to go to the school board, where they were paying me $400 a month. Not even for gas, really. But you don't do it for the money. You do it for the rewards and for what you can give and back to the community. Anyway, so I won my seat on the school board, and became a teacher, was very happy teaching. I was doing both. I was going to my board meetings twice a month and teaching on a daily basis. A lot of stuff happened in between, but you fast forward to 2016, and under the new term limits, term limit rules. Before, if you ran for office, you could spend 6 years in the Assembly and 8 years in the Senate. So most people would go 6 years and then they would run for Senate and kind of trade it off. But it didn't really give that many of us opportunities, those of us that were not on that path, opportunities to run for those positions. Term limits changed, and now it's a 12-year term, but you can spend all 12 years either in the Assembly or in the Senate. They shortened it by 2 years, but now you can do the whole 12 years in one house or the other. And so I told you all my experience, not only my life experience, but I told you about my elected experience, my work experience, my college experience. And I said, well, there's nobody better than me to run for that seat, you know, and apparently nobody else thought that except for me. Well, and my family, of course. But I said, well, I'm going to run for this position. And it was probably the most difficult thing that I've ever done in my life, and the most rewarding. Most of us don't like to ask for money. And regardless of what anybody tells you, money is the number one issue to be elected. And I appreciate, and we can get into a whole another discussion about, you know, corporate money, non-corporate money. The fact of the matter is that if I'm not elected, I can't represent you. If I'm not elected, I can't write that bill. And so there was a whole bunch of what we call, you know, just turmoil within that campaign. People that say that they support women don't support women. Just so you know, my ladies, everybody says, oh, we support women because it sounds good. But when it came down to my race, the party didn't support me. The women electeds didn't support me. They didn't, and wouldn't even have a conversation with me about me running. They wouldn't even answer the phone because they automatically assumed, number one, that I was not their candidate, number two, that I was going to lose, so why bother with me? And so they didn't even bother with me. But I shared earlier that I learned the most valuable thing is knock on doors. And so yes, in this case, I needed a little bit more money than I needed for my water board race. It's the hardest thing to do, to raise money, number one, but for women, gentlemen, it's that much harder for women because we were taught not to ask for anything, especially in a Latino household. They're like, you're not supposed to ask for anything. You're supposed to take care of yourself. And I think a lot of I think in general, right? But a lot of ethnic families, they tell you don't ask for anything. You know, you don't want to owe anybody anything. And I think that's the whole perception of, you know, this corporate money that we talk about. So I would go to Sacramento, started talking to folks. I did eventually get some support from corporations, and of course I got attacked, which we call hit pieces. There was my opponent spent $1.2 million on these hit pieces, trying to get me, you know, not to win. We won, thank God. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. We ended up raising, I think, in the beginning it was about $300,000 that I ended up raising in a period of 2 years. And that, I couldn't even see the door to $25,000. And so for me to be able to raise $300,000 was like the biggest thing that I've ever done. So it was the hardest. But anyway, it is public policy, but I think you need to know that. So when you're talking to elected officials, it's not just some person, you know, that just walked into this position and is telling you what to do. All of us have life experiences. We all have our own stories. And whether you agree with me or not, my opinions and my trajectory is mine. And we can agree to disagree on policy issues, on money issues. But again, at the end of the day, if I don't do what I need to do, I can't represent my community. I can't pass those 18 bills that we talked about. And for me, really important, my very favorite one this year was the governor just signed, it just became law in January, it was a DACA for the DACA students for a Dream Resource Center, where I was the original dreamer. I didn't call myself then, but I was an original dreamer that didn't have the opportunity because some counselor said that I wasn't capable of, you know, doing anything other than them being in the kitchen. And so I was able to pass a Dream Resource Center which requires community colleges, the CSU, and we can only suggest to the UCs. But a Dream Resource Center where folks like me can go get resources and get some help, you know, whether it be tutoring, whatever it may be, so that they can be successful in their educational careers. So that's me. I, again, was elected in 2016. In the Assembly, you have to run every 2 years. So I was unopposed in 2018, and I am unopposed again this year, which kind kind of gives me, not only the fact that they're scared of me because I beat them the first time, but also that the work that I've been doing in Sacramento is resonating with my constituents. At the end of the day, those are the folks that I'm serving. I love you all. And you're secondary, but my constituents are the ones that I have to answer to. I've been able to cross that, proverbial aisle that everybody talks about. I work with Republicans, I work with Democrats. Within my cities, I have Democratic cities, I have cities that are majority Republican, and all of them, at least they tell me they love me. All of them say that they love me because I'm accessible to them. The Republicans hate my policies. But when they call, we can sit down and talk about the issue, and they're like, look, we hate you, we hate your policies, but we love you because we can have a conversation with you. So anyways, that's my political kind of why I'm here and how I got here. One last plug, I want to make sure that hopefully one day I call it my ego ask for me to be able to do the commencement speech at Belmont High School someday. And I'm working on that. I'm going to do it. You're going to see me on TV to do the commencement speech and tell all of those students there that somebody decided for me a long time ago that I wasn't going to be anything, except for now I have an office in that white building in Sacramento. So thank you. Thank you. Now, I love my staff, and he did a great job on my talking points, except I don't use many of them. So I think I covered everything, Taylor. I covered everything that I was supposed to, cover. Yep, running for office, I covered that in my own way. So now let's talk about the realities and the kind of the perceptions of Sacramento. Again, you think we all go over there, we're sitting on our desks, just signing stuff and writing bills. That is not the case. It's a whole bill process, and it's the most amazing process that I've ever been involved with. It is terrible at times. It's terrible. It's that whole, what is that saying, that if you want, it's like making sausage. Laws is like making sausage. You love it afterwards, but you don't want to watch it, being made. It's exactly like that. The process to get to anything is just so bureaucratic. And I was upset with it in the beginning, but after my first and second year, I was like, I get why. Our forefathers, I have to tell you, that their foresight back then is exactly right on. The amount of work that we have to do to get something on the books is incredible. And I want to also share that a lot of constituents tell me, you guys do make deals behind closed doors. And I'm like, yes, we do. Because it's the negotiation part that happens, and it can't be it's behind closed doors because we got nowhere else to go. We're all kind of together, at the Capitol, but the ability to be able to negotiate is the most crucial part of being in the legislature. And for you all who are hopefully going to be city managers and kind of in the city realm, you have to understand first and foremost the policy issues, but you also have to understand the people factor. You can't come to me and say, if you don't know who I am, and say, those immigrants, they're terrible. Let's write a bill against those immigrants. If you don't know my story, then I'd be like, yeah, that's not going to happen. And so now we're going to disagree because you have no idea where I came from. And so those of you that are going to be in city government, there's these people called city council members that are, they decide your fortune, your livelihood. At any given moment, in most districts, there's 5 people, right? And there's 3 that it takes to make a decision. The other 2 could be irrelevant. So if at any moment in your life, in your future careers, it's a 3-2 vote, you're in trouble. Because next election, somebody else is gonna run and it may flip the board, and then there goes your job. I don't want to scare you. I still want you to be city managers and city government. But the reality is that you have to understand those people. Because if you go into a position, and my city managers from 2 of my cities that are here, if you go into a position not understanding where they're coming from, you're going to be at odds with those folks. Instead of taking their life experience and the reason that they chose to run for office is really important, because their values are what they're fighting for. Whether you agree with them or not, those are their values. And if yours conflict with theirs, or at any moment you take sides with one or the other, then you're going to be in trouble. You have to understand the people behind those positions. So in Sacramento, I went in, I'm like, here I am, I'm going to be amazing. All of these things that I promised on my, because we all make promises, I'm going to take care of them all in 1 year. And I was like, no, it's not going to happen because of the process. Again, the process works. So I went in, one of 80 assembly members, and that's the beauty of it. It's one of 80. My vote matters just as much as everybody else's. We went in there. You have to hire all these staff. I was sharing earlier that I love what I do, but the whole HR part of it, I hate it because I'm in charge now of 11 people. And so I have to be able to manage. I have my chief of staff in Sacramento that manages my Sacramento staff. And then my district director manages my district staff. But in the meantime, I still have to deal with, everything that is personnel management, which I didn't sign up for, by the way. I'm still mad about that. I didn't sign up for that. But so it takes a lot of people to make that the organization work, and it takes a lot of people to make Sacramento work. And for you, the purposes of you being here, if you take anything from what I said, this place is all about relationships. That's what I was trying to tell you in a roundabout way. It's those relationships that you make with people that are going to make you successful. If you don't have a relationship with that person, you might as well just kind of look at your job, and you'll be one of those rotating folks in and out of different cities, different, whatever organizations that are government organizations that are available to you. And so the number one thing that I did, because I taught kindergarten, first grade, and fourth grade, I know about relationships. I'm like, I have to, be able to communicate with my students. And that I actually literally in my head, I went, okay, this is like my classroom. What am I going to do to be relevant? Because if you go one way or the other, eventually you're irrelevant. Some of them, unfortunately for our Republican colleagues up there, they're irrelevant. They're like, we had a fight, we call them floor fights. We had a fight on the floor yesterday. One of the Republicans wanted to bring a bill out and kill it, but it's this whole constitutional way of doing it. And we're all just sitting there, I'm like, gotta go. I wasn't disrespectful, but we were just like, we know that it was a Republican doing it and it wasn't going to go anywhere. Even if I voted for the Republican, it takes 41 votes to pass in this case, it was a 54 vote bill because it was changing some rules. So 41 is hard enough, but to get 54 people to agree with you is very difficult. As a Republican, there's 19 Republicans. So they're already outnumbered. And so we were all kind of just sitting there going, okay, we know what they were going to do. And he was doing it because he's up for election. So they were videotaping so that he can put it out to his constituency that he's fighting for them, which is cool, except for they're not getting anywhere. But those are the realities of really what happens out there. So it's all about, number one, all about relationships. If you don't have a relationship with your colleagues anywhere, you're not going to move any of your policies through or any of your amazing ideas. I have amazing ideas. But if I don't have those relationships, I'm not going to be able to make them into a reality. I tend to talk, so if anybody has any questions, I'll stop right now if you have any questions so far, just so that I also am a teacher and I can tell when people's eyes are glazing over. So this is a good time to stop, and if you have any questions, I would love to answer it. It could be personal, I don't, whatever it is, I'm here to answer any of your questions. Yes?
You say you make decisions behind closed doors and don't have to follow the Brown Act. Cities do. You think we should have the ability not to follow the Brown Act, like legislature?
Well, it's not a Brown Act violation when the vote is 41. In a city, you have 5 votes, and so 3 of you are talking, that's a Brown Act violation. When, if it's 41, I have to be talking in a room with 21 people. Open session, closed yes, you're right. What he's referring to, if you know about the Brown Act, you cannot make decisions behind closed doors. 3 or more of you cannot make a decision if you're not informing the public. In the legislature, the Brown Act does not apply. So I can sit down with anybody I want and make those and they call them backroom deals just because it sounds awful, but it isn't. It's negotiation. I would like to change that word to negotiation, because I cannot negotiate if I'm, if I'm sitting in front of you and I can't really be honest about, hey, help me here. The reason I'm doing this bill is because my constituents, blah, blah, blah. And then, somebody else says, well, in my area, it doesn't work that way. Well, then how can we come together, right? And so that's where you're right.
Do you think they should be consistent where we have the same ability as the state legislature?
That's a good question. Let me come back to that one, because I come from the city of Baldwin Park. And I don't want to throw my colleagues or my ex-colleagues under the bus, but the things that they're doing right now is not good for the community. And though a lot of those have, in my opinion, it's only an opinion, I cannot prove it, have happened behind closed doors. So, but I can't prove a Brown Act violation, so therefore there is no violation. But I know that when you go in and you already know how there is no debate and you already vote the way, the majority does, then you do the math, right? But you can't prove it. So I'm come back on that question. It depends on the integrity of the board. I mean, we all hope and pray that your elected officials have integrity and honesty, but the reality is it's not that way. So there was somebody else in the back, and then I'll come down.
I was curious about any influence you believe you've had or do have in the budget committee, and if you have any stories regarding your position there and what you've been able to influence or pass.
Yes. So yes and no. I sit on Budget Sub 1, which is Health and Human Services, and because I am on Budget Sub 1, I also am part of the whole entire state budget. Really cool. Except for when we get to those meetings, it's just like they're just telling us what we need to do. But I have had some budgetary asks. Each member gets an opportunity to ask for money for their communities. Now, not all of it, it's all about relationships again. If I have a bad relationship with the budget chair, none of my stuff is going in what they call conference. So the way it works is there's five budget subcommittees. We all have meetings. We talk about priorities, mine is health and human services. So I focus on foster youth and a lot of the kind of social service work, but there's public safety, we've got education, so all of these subcommittees meet kind of individually. Then they put priorities together. Then we send it all to the budget chair. And the budget chair says, okay, the Senate does the same thing on their side. So their priorities may be different than ours, right? And so we have our set of priorities. The Senate has a set of priorities. Then they pick 3 people. They pick one from the Assembly, one from the Senate, and who else is on there? I don't know, there's 3 people that get to talk about which ones are thrown out. So they throw out whatever they think is not worth it. Then once that's done, then the big 3, which is the governor's office, the pro tem, and the speaker of the assembly get together and talk about, that's where the negotiations happen. Okay, well, I can't pay for this. Okay, well, I want to pay for this, but not this. And what happens is the governor puts out his budget in the beginning of January. So right now we meet and we talk about, hey, the governor only put $15 million for this program. Is it worth it? And then we say it's worth it. We should have 25 million. And so that's where the whole negotiation happens. So yes, we have influence, right, on the original asks, but once it gets into conference committee is what they call it, then at that point they literally do this, okay, not this one, not this one, not this one, not this one, based on their own priorities. So I have a voice in my own subcommittee, and we have been able to get some things across. For example, one of the hardest thing that happened for that particular community or for the Health and Human Services was that the award for folks that are in, it's not welfare, but it's like disability, is $700 a month, right? And our ask was like, let's increase it $100. And in reality, who can live off of $800? We can't, realistically. But for me, if you ask for $100 more, it's $100 more than they had, right? So we thought about it and we were able to get those extra $100 for those folks that are on disability to be able to get on a monthly basis. Now, in the whole scope of things, they're struggling still. They, excuse me, they're still struggling, and because they receive that stipend, they don't qualify for food stamps. So this is the debate, right? So here I am really, really excited that we got them an extra $100 on their monthly stipend, but now they don't qualify for food stamps, or they qualify for $5. And we hear stories like that all the time. So I'm like, yay, and oh my God. So now the battle this year is, can we lift the income requirement so that now those folks can qualify for food stamps again? But that's the debate. And mine is my committee is like really, really, sometimes I go out of there in tears just for people come and say, please, I need food on the table. So yes, I was able to affect the budget, but then you saw the consequences with it. So now we have to go into another fight to try and increase the minimum amount that they receive on paper so that they can qualify for food stamps. So yes, I've asked, I just got $2.5 million for a park in one of my communities a couple of years ago. I got $1.2 million. We've got some money for, in South El Monte, we got money for the police. I think it was $300,000. So it's in the whole budget scope of things, I think the budget is $180 billion. And the whole $300,000 is what I call budget dust. In my opinion, those little asks should be automatic. But then you think about 80 assembly members, 40 senators, $300,000 times 120, and then we start adding up. So they have to be really careful as to what you get and ask for. So I just had my staff meeting yesterday because the sub 1 budget requests are due on Monday. And so we were going through, I have literally 31 requests of people that are hurting in all these different programs. So what do? I can put them all, but then now we have to rank them, which ones are priority, because the reality is they're gonna look at 31 and go, okay, we're not even looking at these in the bottom, right? So yes, I've had some successes in getting some budgetary items out, but in the whole scope of things, again, because our budget is so huge, it's not that much. It's a lot for my community, but it's not, something that I can say, oh my God, I got, $10 million. I have had other asks in collaboration with senators. So I had an ask for domestic violence victims, and that ask was of $20 million. We ended up getting 10 the first year. And so we're doing the ask again. I'm gonna ask for 50, so hopefully we get 15 million this time. So we play the odds. You have to kind of be very strategic as to what you ask for and when. And so anyway, I know that's a long-winded answer to your question, but yes, I've had some successes with the budget, in my opinion, on a small scale, because by the time it gets to the conference committee, that's when the real big ticket items are negotiated. Like another, I think we're asking for $100 million for a preschool. That's a big budget item, right? And so the reality is that the governor's gonna go, okay, $100 million, where are we going to take the $100 million away from? Because that's how it works, right? If you give it to this person, then you got to take it away from somewhere, because it's only a limited amount of money that you have. Okay, sorry.
Thank you. We're so grateful you're here today. I want to encourage the students to ask questions as well. I'm curious about a global story with local implications, which is the coronavirus. Do you think as a state we're in the ready, set position to deal with this?
So I'm been busy yesterday and today. There was a conference call yesterday that I haven't been briefed on, but there was it's all rhetoric. So let me just kind of preface that, because I don't want to scare anybody. But there was I think in Sacramento or up up north, there was that case that they don't know where that person contracted the coronavirus from. I think we are ready, to be honest with you. I think we have really capable groups of folks that are prepared for this, but the rhetoric and the one case is more newsworthy than anything else. So I am not scared. Plus I taught kindergarten, so I'm pretty much immune to everything. But I'm not afraid, and I fly. So my staff is like, oh my God, you have to get a mask. I'm like, I'm not going to get a mask, because my lifestyle is I go to Sacramento on Sunday nights. I fly to Sacramento. I'm there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and on Thursday I fly home. So I flew in yesterday, and it's just kind of, actually this week I flew on Sunday, and then on Monday I had to come for an event at Staples Center, and then I went back at 9 p.m. on Monday night, and then I came back yesterday. So this week I've already flown 4 times. And so my staff is like, you have to take care of yourself. And I'm like, no, because if I don't feel threatened, and if I start displaying, a mask, then people are going to go, oh my God, the Assemblywoman is like wearing a mask, right? And so until we get to that point, then you'll see me wearing a mask. If you see me wearing a mask, run and go get a mask yourself. Because at that point, but I don't think, honestly, I really do believe that we have capable, agencies that are helping with that. And I hope that I'm correct, but I see the signs of people are working on it. I didn't participate in the briefing yesterday, but I will today. So maybe next week I'll send you an email and tell you what's going on. But the reality is that we do have capable hands of taking care of that. Now, in the global sense, it's scary. Oh my God, people are scared of me. They're scared to death of me for a couple of reasons. Number one, because I beat, I was not supposed to win, so I won. So that freed me up to do whatever I needed to do. That's number one. And just so you know, I've been up since 4 a.m. This is my energy all the time. If I could bottle it, I would be a millionaire right now. But and Rachel knows me. Rachel and my staff member, it takes 6 of them to keep up with me. So this is my energy all the time. And my sister's similar. I'm a little bit better, but she's similar. So this is the amount of energy that I bring literally, I've been up since 4 a.m. I did a radio interview this morning at a Spanish radio station. But that energy scares people, to be honest with you. They're used to their own pace. This is, don't rock the boat, that kind of, you've heard them all, right? Don't rock the boat. What do you hear? You're not going to change the world overnight. I've heard that too. And I'm like, I might not change the world, but I can change somebody's world. Right? And so my belief and Susan's belief is that we're only here for a limited amount of time. I can't waste it resting. Right? Except for I did rest last week and my staff was like, she's human. But in 3 years, I was tired and I went home early and literally they're all calling each other, is she okay? She's human. Oh my God, she's human. But I'm only here for a limited amount of time. Potentially I have another 9 years in the seat. And if I sit and rest, then anybody can do my job. Right? Or if I rubber stamp everything, anybody can push that, there's little buttons that we push, anybody can push that button. Why would I be different if I'm doing everything that everybody's telling me? And what she's also alluding to is that I am a staunch Democrat. I am a Democrat. Democratic values. I bleed blue. However, I don't just vote on stuff because I'm a Democrat. If there's an issue that comes before me that makes no sense, I vote no or don't vote. And people get upset with me. They're like, well, you're supposed to. You're not a good Democrat. And I'm like, my district is very moderate. And Sacramento loves to put labels on folks. So I am a mod dem is what they call me, a moderate Democrat. And they say that to kind of, they say it in a negative connotation. She's just mod. Okay, so I believe in balance. How's that? They're really high on report cards over there. Everybody gets a report card on everything. And last year, the report cards are just coming out this year, but last year I think it was like 79% voting record with the chamber, Cal Chamber, which is, traditionally a Republican, institution, but I had 86% with labor. I know, those are Bs, right? And so let's round up the 79 to 80%, that's a B, and my 86% rounded down to a B. That shows you that I can be business friendly, but I can also support working families, right? My record shows it. But I had a conversation with somebody on Monday that says, well, you and your sister are not good labor champions. I was like, okay. So we got into a big old discussion. Their report card came out yesterday. Susan got 100%, and I have 94%. But on Monday, he was literally telling me that we're not good labor champions. And I'm like, so you see what happened there? The label is what they believe, the rhetoric, right? That we're not good for labor unions. And I tell you that because in this whole race with my sister, all the labor unions are attacking Sylvia, right? Because we're not good labor champions. So I'm like, okay, let me get this straight. You're punishing Sylvia because you think that Susan and I are not good labor champions. But lo and behold, the report card came out yesterday, and I'm gonna refrain. But you know what I wanna do with that report card, right? Because it's unfair that they label me, and then their reality is based on what they labeled me. Now I can sit and fight with everybody about it, or I can just continue doing what I'm doing and continue getting the support from my community. My community's happy. They get what they need. My union labor friends in my community get what they need. My businesses are trying to survive, and I'm helping them by helping with good policies. And so I can't be mad. They decide that labels are important to them, and I'm not going to fight with, whoever in Sacramento. But that's the reality, right? So there's perception. The perception is that Susan and I are not good labor champions. But the reality is that our report cards, I don't know, 100% is pretty good. 94 is pretty good too, right? And so, those of you in class, wouldn't you love those grades, right? And so we got to Sacramento, and people are scared. So the reason, the way that the fear manifests itself is by putting a label on me. And I'm sure you picked up on this. Don't mess with me. Like, how many of you picked up on that already, right? So, and I grew up in downtown LA, so I'm what we call street. If you're down a street with me and somebody's coming at me, you stick with me, nothing's gonna happen. Yes. Okay, so my little brother is in Baumholder, Germany right now. He's a member of the Army. And his wife, my new sister-in-law and my new niece are in Baumholder, Germany. And one of the things that happened to him, so of course, bills are ideas and bills are experiences. So my brother was stationed in Qatar for a whole year, okay? So the good old franchise tax board decided that his income tax wasn't correct. So they kept sending him letters to his house, to my parents' house. Guess where he is? Qatar. And so they're like, well, since you haven't responded, we're gonna garnish your wages. So they're garnishing my brother's wages, and he can't respond because he's in Qatar. And now the federal government didn't do that. The federal government was like, cool, we know you're gone, we'll deal with it when you come back. But California garnished his wages. And I was like, that's ridiculous. And he couldn't do anything. He had to get a power of attorney to try and fix his taxes, blah, blah, blah. And so here we are. He came back finally, and they said, oh, we're so sorry, we were wrong, here's all your money back. But in the meantime, he's serving our country in Qatar, really dangerous part of the world, and he's having to worry about, these franchise tax boards. So, to your point, our new bill for this year is that it's a one-liner. Service members that are deployed may not have their taxes garnished. Very simple. So yes, thank you. And because of my personal experience, right? And so that's when we talk about personal experiences, but I also have to be accessible to you to tell me, because I can't have every single experience, right? And so that's where you come in. You have to advocate for your issues as well, because I'm fabulous and I have a ton of energy, but the reality is that I'm not gonna be able to talk to everybody. So it's your responsibility too, that if you want something done, to communicate that, not just to your local leaders, but to us. Guess what? I'm normal. I like to share usually when I have big groups come in and they're doing what they call lobby days and they're supposed to go to different offices. I'm like, look, let me just explain something to you. I have 2 kids. My son Aiden has just turned 13 and he stinks because he's 13, literally like order. And every night I'm like, dude, take a bath or take a shower. He's like, Mom, why? Every single night. After a long day at the Capitol, I'm an amazing assemblywoman that has an office at that Capitol, and every night I have to fight with that kid about taking a shower, right? So, and then, and I'll tell you why I tell you these things. He hates it, but I'm like, I will shame you until you start taking showers. And then my mornings usually starts at 6, and then I don't get home till about 9, 10 p.m. So who has time for laundry? Not me. So this is how my life works. I get a pile of laundry, stick it in the washer, go to sleep. In the morning I get up, stick it in the dryer, come back, pull it out of the dryer and start that all over again. So guess what? There's a pile of laundry on my dryer right this minute. How many of you have piles of laundry like that, right? And the reason that I say that is because I want you to see the human part of me. I want a roof over my son's, my children's head. I want food on the table, and I want a good education. Those are the basic needs that I want, which are aligned with what you want and what you need. So when you go and talk to electeds, they're normal people. Some of them are a little bit more arrogant than others, but they're still people, and they still have the same issues that you have on a daily basis. Those of you that have had 13-year-old boys know exactly what I'm talking about. And those of you that will have 13-year-old boys eventually will know what I'm talking about later. But what I want you to take out of this is that I'm normal. So when you're sitting in front of a legislator or any elected person, they're normal people. Think of that pile of laundry and they're, on top of their dryer. It makes it easier for you to be able to connect with them because now you're talking to somebody like you. And I think that's kind of the difference is between Susan and me. Not everybody's like that, and I don't want everybody to be like that, but this is just who I am. This has been who I've been for the last 4 years. Now, I won't get into a discussion about morality and ethics because we all come from different areas and our, what we grew up on. Give me a second. Is different. But what we can do is take personal responsibility, number one. But when we're talking about, kind of the finances and all of that stuff, then we also need to get back to actual work in the high schools. It's not going to be the answer that you want, and I'll tell you that right now because the morals and ethics. How do you figure out what's moral to you that's different to somebody else?
Perfect
question to be asked in there and behind closed doors? Start with that question.
Every
Because
person.
It's got to start in there.
Yes, but I also talked to you about my upbringing and what my beliefs are, right? And the reason that I do what I do is because of what I've been through, right? And so I certainly believe that I'm doing the best job that I can. Now this is how I describe it. I have 49% of the people that hate me in my district, right? 49% of people that are like, she's terrible. And then 49%, we love her. But only 2% actually know me, right? And so you make assumptions on people based on what you see or what you want to believe based on how you grow up, right? So I told you, I would be, I guess I could have an excuse if I was terrible to, my Caucasian friends, because I was treated poorly when I was a kid in Texas by Caucasian people, right? But I can't, that in my opinion would be morally correct. There's 120 different opinions up there, right? And so what we did do on Monday, and I spoke on the floor on Monday, oh my God, the days are together. So we just issued an apology to the Japanese Americans that were in internment camps. I stood up on the floor on Monday, and what does that do for them? Who knows? But we, as a state, the legislature spoke up, and I specifically got up and spoke, apologizing to the Japanese Americans for interning them when they were in internment camps. Now, does that solve their problems? No, but that's a good start, right? I belong to the Native American Select Committee on Native American issues specifically for that, because I know that there was a lot of atrocities. I taught 4th grade, so Native American is part of what California history is what we teach. But I can't fix it, and I can't make people believe what I believe. But when we put up that vote for that, it's a kind of a resolution, basically. There's 80 of us, and I think it passed with 62 votes. Should have passed with 80. So there is another bill. See, there's a bill for everything. There's another bill that addresses ethnic studies, not just one group or the other. We're trying to figure out how this can work, because I also belong to the Jewish caucus. I did my genealogy, and we're Jewish back then, and so I belong to the Jewish caucus. And so what's good for this population is not good for the Jewish community. And so how do we, who decides what's morally correct, and who decides who was more harmed? But that's a what?
Church can do that.
Yeah, so you're going to tell that to the Jewish people, that a church is going to decide,
They can do that. Their own church can do that.
Right, a temple is there,
A temple,
yeah.
whatever they want to build.
And my point is that, with so many different opinions, we have to take baby steps, and, maybe it's not what you want to hear, but again, we did,
I don't want to say it. I don't want
No,
to
absolutely. No,
say
but
it.
it's a good discussion, and we have to be able to talk about it, because if we keep putting it to the side, we're never going to resolve anything. And so for us, the good first step, like I said, was the Japanese apology. So, okay, yes.
And the ever-increasing numbers of homeless, in particularly LA County right now, and as a local administrator for many, many years, a lot of the responsibility falls upon the cities themselves in dealing with, and we get it all the time. People showing up at a council meeting screaming at us, what are we doing? But really it takes, as you know, the cooperation and the working together of the county, the cities, and ultimately the state. And I know that Governor Newsom has made this one of his top priorities right now. What are you hearing right now that's coming out of Sacramento that will assist or cooperatively work with the local municipalities in dealing with it? I know it's a big
No, it's a big question, but anybody recall, or those of you that are in cities, SB 50, the little tiny bill, it's that SB 50 was supposed to allow. Okay, so let me back up. The problem that we think is very prevalent with housing and lack thereof is that a lot of folks are priced out, right, out of their homes. So the SB 50, which is Senator Wiener's bill, said we need to have people live near transportation hubs so that it's easier to get to work, right? So SB 50 allowed for you guys know better than I do. Less restricted.
Housing development and taking control away from local.
Yes, well, see, and that's where the problem is. So what we were saying, or that bill says, is City of Duarte, City of South El Monte, City of Irwindale, all of you must build these homes, right? Well, Irwindale has 1,500 residents. And it's an industrial city like Vernon, and on a daily basis, they have 60,000 people working there. So, but Irwindale has a program because they have have you ever been, to the Miller Coors, passed by the 210? That's Irwindale right there. So they have all those holes, those are all the mining pits. So way back, there were some issues with lung disease for some of those residents in Irwindale. So Irwindale has this program that they provide medical eye insurance, and the prescriptions are for free for residents of Irwindale. Okay, if you have 1,500 residents, cool, you can pay for that. So the state is telling the city of Irwindale, you must build whatever, X amount of homes. And if you don't, we're gonna penalize you. Well, if Irwindale, say they build another, capacity for another 1,500 people, the program that they're providing to their residents right now doesn't work. It goes bankrupt. So now they have to shut down that program for their original 1,500 people. And guess what the residents are doing? What, why? Like, we were fine. So Irwindale says, I'm not gonna do it. And the state says, well, we're gonna penalize you if you don't. Right? But Irwindale says, forget you, we're not doing it anyway. So there's that fight. And then you have big cities that are trying to do the best that they can, but they don't have any land to build on. So the same requirement for that city that has no land to build upon has the same requirements that the city of Irwindale has. So we can't dictate, one brush doesn't paint all of it, right? So we have to be able to look at the cities and say, what is best for your city? Now, on the flip side though, some cities are like, even if it's best for us, we're not doing it, because we don't want to change the facade of our, the facade of our city, right? And those are the more affluent communities, right? So now we have, the less affluent communities building all of these, places so that people can live, but then the affluent communities don't. And so if we have to meet in the middle. I think, to be honest with you, I think redevelopment should come back. That's just the fix. Redevelopment was a program that cities were able to utilize where they can partner up. They would get money from the state, right? And then they were able to partner up with developers and build all of these things that we're talking about. Affordable housing, because they had, under the redevelopment rules, they could build X amount, but they had to build 20% affordable housing, right? It was their own rules. So they knew that when they were building these, these housing units, they already knew that 20% had to be. Now we took that away. So now the cities that don't want to build, they're like, yeah, you can't make me. And so anyway, it's complicated, but SB 50 is dead. The Senate, I know, is working on a compromise to SB 50, where, where you're gonna get the funding, all of that. They're trying to do an actual, cooked bill, what we call cooked, instead of some fly-by-night bill that says, oh, it's going to fix everything, and then next year we have to come back and fix it. So the Senate is working with the governor's office and with the Assembly to come up with a package that can balance both, all of them. But two more, and then we can, right. So the question is, what are we doing for families? SB 918 was a bill that I co-authored with Senator Wiener 2 years ago already, and this addressed, in our opinion, Senator Wiener and I, the same author of SB 50, said that there's a lot of programs for adults that are homeless. There's programs for families that are homeless, but there was no programs for young adults that were homeless. Unfortunately, the foster care system is broken. What happens is kids age out of the foster care system at 18, or sometimes depending on the circumstances, right? So you're telling somebody that's 18 that hasn't finished their education, sorry, you don't have any more money for you, go live, because now you're 18. Well, that wasn't working. At any given moment, today, there's 15,000 youth that don't have a place to stay. Like when you go home today and you sleep in your warm bed, there's 15,000 kids that don't have a place to stay today. Now, so what we wanted to address was specifically that population. So the question is, what are we doing for others like adults and families? The reality is that what we're not doing, which is kind of, I'm pivoting, what we're not doing is building enough homes. Because I can put this, like my youth, I love SB 918, but if there's no homes to put the kids in, then my bill is irrelevant, right? And so any kind of legislative fix doesn't fix the fact that we're not building homes fast enough. Last year, I believe we built more housing last year than we have this year. And we put in $1 billion last year for this year. So something's not happening. So I can, target families. I can be a masterful bill writer, but if we don't have homes, it won't matter. And so to your point, we can't do any of those programs unless we build more homes. And that's where the partnerships with the cities have to come in. We can't just say, hey, city, do this, when it doesn't work for that community.
And also actually a task, because I'm also a CAR member, so I'm also a realtor, in which, how are you also engaging the realtor community to maybe even
Wow.
do the outreach?
Let me tell you about another bill that I wrote last year. They got vetoed by the governor. So I wrote a bill that says that a first-time homeowner can get a $5,000 tax credit. Very simple. Because I also believe when we're getting into the debate of housing, we want to put people in apartments. That is what I hear. Affordable housing means apartments. The way to build wealth, and we've all, at least I know everybody at least knows this, is to buy a house. That's how you build wealth. When you die, you inherit it to your kids, and they have a house, and now they have somewhere to live, right? So what's happening is we're talking about this homeless issue, and we're trying to build apartments to stick people in apartments. Well, that's not building wealth, right? So my bill said that for first-time home buyers, I worked with the realtors, that was that was the partnership, that you would get a $5,000 tax credit. Now, in the whole scope of things, again, it's not that much money, but when you're barely scraping to buy a house, $5,000 is a big deal, right? And so my idea was, yes, we need to build apartments, but we also need to have actual homes that people can own so that they are not poor anymore. If you're going to spend $2,500 in an apartment or $2,500 on your own home, it just makes no sense. So yes, we need to build more housing and affordable housing, but it doesn't have to be only apartments. And so I did partner up with the realtors, and so this is the truth. It was an amazing bill, but he got mad at the realtors and he vetoed it because he was mad at the realtors. Had nothing to do with the substance of the bill, had nothing to do with anything that was happening. He vetoed my bill because he got mad at the realtors because they fought him on some other thing. And so I was like, oh man, so now I have to do it again. So hopefully this time he won't be mad at them, and then he'll sign the bill. But that's the reality of, it's great policy, but his mood that day was mad at the realtors, so he vetoed my bill because of that, right? So it's also, it's all based on personalities and, what's going on that day. So I'll make sure that I'll get him some wine next time when he's doing bill signing so that he's calm. But those are the realities of what happens in Sacramento. My bills are amazing. But we'll go here and then, I'm sorry, he was next.
Hi. So there's a lot of talk here about coordinated efforts and, being able to work interchangeably with academia, bridging academia to the public sector, working with multiple municipalities and stuff like that. How do you personally keep in touch with such a large constituency, not just the door knocking, but with governance and the many cities and regional efforts and nonprofits and keeping in touch with that while also doing strategic efforts in Sacramento?
I need 25 hours in the day now. I work a lot, I do. So this morning we were up at 4 a.m. I did my radio station, and then, this is to your point, I went to my district office and we had what I call a superintendent roundtable. So all of the superintendents in my area, we have 11 school districts, so we invited all 11, not everybody showed up, but I also have city manager roundtables, I have police chief roundtables, and we come together, I'm like, hey, what do you need? I mean, we have an agenda, but so today, for example, the superintendents wanted to know about the state budget and how it was going to affect the school district. So we had a call from Sacramento. The budget person for education was talking to them. Once they hung up, we were talking, I'm like, okay, what do you need? And it literally just happened right now. And they said, well, we need this. So everybody had a different opinion. I said, obviously, I can't, my staff is there, but I'm not going to remember any of it. So can you do me a favor and amongst yourselves, pass around an email, put what you think that you want for me to advocate for the budget this year. So they're working together to give me a list of things that they came up with, and then they're gonna send it to me. So that's how I keep in touch. So when we have the city manager roundtables, then the city managers get together and we have kind of the same conversation. The police chiefs, we have conversations about, what's happening in terms of public safety. And so those are the district ones. But I am seriously, like, my calendar is crazy. One day I did 30 meetings. Now, the good thing is that in Sacramento, everybody comes to me. So I'm sitting there and you can rotate them, but here I have to go, I was in Burbank at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. and then I went to West Covina and then I came here and then I have to go back to West Covina. Now I can't take 30 meetings today, right? But when I'm in the Capitol, when different organizations come, I have an open door policy, especially for my constituents. Rachel and all of you, they can attest. I will stop whatever I do if I have another meeting, but most of the time people understand that our schedules are packed and so they schedule in advance. And so the nonprofits, we have a nonprofit of the year, so we go and talk to all the nonprofits to select the nonprofit of the year. They come up, but I regularly have conversations like that with those folks, and that's my way of being able to interact. I also have what I call a rotation, so I'll call a council member from Glendora, for example, and I'll have dinner with her once every couple months. I have a council member from West Covina that I have, and I rotate them. I have lunch with them. So we do a group, like I did this morning, my superintendent's roundtable, but I also have individual relationships, because the number one thing you got out of today is what? Relationships. And don't mess with me, yes. Thank you. But so that's how I'm able to connect, and I have amazing staff that goes out into the community. Obviously their job in the district is very different, because in Sacramento it's all policy and legislative, but these guys over here represent me, literally can speak for me, because they know exactly how I feel about certain issues. And I get nothing but compliments about my staff. Taylor, thank you, when I go around. But I do a lot of talks with the chambers. I go to, all the community events. And yes, we do a lot of shaking hands and kissing babies. So that's tomorrow. So I'll go do a ribbon cutting for whatever. I'll go do, certificates for the Little League. That's about keeping my job, right? So there's like 3 aspects to this, right? It's the Sacramento aspect, the kind of the office hours on Friday and throughout the week. And then there's the shaking hands and kissing babies. I gotta keep my job. And on top of that, I have to raise money all the time to be able to keep my job. So my life is crazy, but I love every minute of it. And I think for me, when I reach out to my city of Duarte, who he just retired, but Karen, who, thank you, Karen, she's sick today, but Karen is one of those in my rotation. She's the assistant city manager of the city of Duarte. We met, hit it off, and so we have lunch on a regular basis, and she's like, hey, do you mind doing this for USC? I'm like, I love you, so of course. And so that's how I maintain kind of the touch between the community and myself, because it's very easy to be in Sacramento and not really care. We have regular office hours, and then I call the second shift. The second shift is about community, we do the rounds. Somebody has a fundraiser here, somebody has a fundraiser here. People want to go and talk to you here, because now it's where that whole money, the evil money comes in. The reality is I have to raise money. If I don't have money to run a campaign, I can't do all of these amazing things that I'm telling you I'm doing. Now, you may not agree that they're amazing, but if I don't do all of those components, if I don't do the legislative part in Sacramento during the day, there's no legislation. If I don't do the rounds, the rounds in the evening, I can't raise money to maintain my, to run for election. If I don't do my Saturday, my roundtables, I'm not communicating with my constituency. And then if I don't do the kissing hands or shaking hands and kissing babies, the community doesn't know who I am, and then I won't get reelected. So it's, just all of these things that we juggle. Oh, and on top of that, I have a 13-year-old and an 11-year-old, right, exactly, right? And so for me, this is my energy. You've been watching me the whole entire time. I need this level of energy because I'm passionate about what I do. I want to do the best job that I can, whether people agree with me or not. The fact of the matter is that I can sleep at night because I know that I help those teens. SB 918 was one of my favorite bills. It was mainly for foster kids. I can sleep at night because I know that I came and spoke to you all. This is my giving back to my community. I can sleep at night because, I did the Little League thing that I'm gonna do tomorrow. Just all of these different aspects. It's juggling, but I need amazing staff. I have 5 staff members down here and I have 6 up there. that have to juggle all this. And I have the most amazing scheduler, Hilda. If you're listening, tell her I give her a shout out. So Hilda manages my life, not just my legislative life, but I'm like, Hilda, Aiden needs an eye appointment. And so his eye appointment was Tuesday. So I still have to be a mom, and I still have to be a person. If I didn't have the amazing staff that I did, I wouldn't be able to juggle, but also need the energy and the drive. Because you can have energy and not really care, to Rachel's point, that some people are just kind of like, hey, I have 30 meetings. My friends are in jeans walking. I'm like, how the heck are you walking down the street in jeans when I've been in the office, for 8 hours? So it really is a choice. I can choose to sit in my office, not work tomorrow. Saturday and Sunday, I could take it off. That's my choice. I'm my own boss. But then, what am I doing? I'm not representing you. So for me, personally, being able to do what I do, this is amazing. I love what I'm doing right here. Because then I can take your ideas or your, whatever it is, back, and then you're building a relationship with me. So when you go to Sacramento, make sure you look me up. I'll take you to the assembly floor. But I'm able to take those ideas and hey, something may come up later and I go, hey, somebody said we should do blah, 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 blah. And I'm impressed because he did his homework. He knew my bills. I'm really impressed with you. But if I don't do what I do, all of it, it's not just one. If one of them doesn't happen, then I'm not able to serve my community.
My question to you is, in a case where you are approached with the bill and your council members and your mayors and maybe even the county supervisor that you represent as well up there in Sacramento, how do you approach the situation in which they're all sponsoring a bill, but it goes against your own personal values?
I don't take the bill. I don't take the bill because I'm not part of taking on a bill is being able to advocate for it. And if I don't believe in the bill, then I can't, how am I going to go and try to sell it to, because really you're selling it to my, to all the other colleagues. I have to convince 41 people that this is the best idea ever, right? And if I don't believe in it, I can't do that. Because I can convince you that that dirt outside is the best dirt ever if I believe in that dirt. Right? But if I don't believe in a bill, I can't look at you and go, oh, this is the best thing ever. Can you vote for it? It's just not genuine. And so I just don't take bills. And I give them reasons why. Like, look, it goes against this, and that. And hopefully they'll find somebody else. But the reality is that I don't have to take a bill. I keep saying every year we're not going to do as many, but we have another 25 this year. We have 25 bills right now that the bill submission deadline was last week. So I have a package of 25 bills right now. They all die. Some of them will die or whatever. So we'll end up with like probably 11 or 12. But I won't take the bill if I don't believe in it. I can't. Why? It's the same thing.
And one more other question. Do you and your sister ever have a disagreement on?
All the time. Hello, we're sisters. We're sisters, absolutely. As a matter of fact, we got our report card. She got 100%. I got 94%. I voted against one of the bills, and we I'll say, hey, so and so. Hey, we don't necessarily. We do live together up there, but because our schedules are so crazy, we get a limited amount of time to talk. But today we were talking. I'm like, hey, did you see the report card? And she's like, why'd you vote no on that one? I'm like, because of this. She goes, oh man, you should have told me. Blah blah blah. But we argue about stuff all the time. I mean, literally, like all the time. There's 3 of us, and but it's because we're siblings, right? We can get into a big fight, and tomorrow it's fine. We're fine. But now I have an ally in the Senate. So if I need something or somebody's bullying me, I'll be like, and I do that. Sorry, I have to admit. I'm like, I hope your bill doesn't have to go to the Senate. Right? And they're like, because we do fight, but guess what? She has my back. And they know that she has my back and I have hers. And so if they're trying to pull a fast one, I'm like, I hope that senator doesn't, because I can call her and go, look, do me a solid. Don't vote on this one. But I would do that to any other senator, right? Like if I have a good relationship with them, then I'm able to call Cristina Garcia and go, look, can you help me out in this one? Blah, blah, blah. And then, that's where the relationships come in, except for with Susan and I, I've known her for a long time. Yes.
And it kind of relates to 2 topics you covered. So you kind of shared about your story and how you didn't believe in the story at first. And then you shared more about the specific relationships that happen between elected and then appointed officials. Myself, I do hope one day to become an appointed official. However, I do understand the dynamic that exists.
Stop right there. No. Right now, It's a plug. There's a website for the governor's appointments, and there's vacancies. There's, I don't know, 300 committees or commissions that you can belong to, and there's vacancies in all of them. Go on the governor's website. Promise? At least look at it. At least, no, but it's not running for office. This one is you get appointed to them, and some of them meet quarterly. So, and sometimes they meet here, sometimes they'll fly you to Sacramento to meet there. But it's so important. There's so many empty positions that I did an appointments workshop not so long ago for my community. I'm like, you have to apply. The problem is people don't apply because they don't know that it exists. So, I'm gonna stop you. Now you can continue.
I was kind of sharing about that because it's interesting. I think I didn't realize that I had a story because I grew up also in a city that was predominantly Mexican American. It just happened that my dad was from Central America and then my mom was from Mexico. So like I was a little odd in this city. Yeah, in this specific city. But then I came to LA to do my undergrad here at USC, and that's when I realized that I'm a Latina, and I didn't know it was a thing. I thought it was, or in general, or how you grow up and everything. Which was interesting. So now that I'm doing my master's, I'm really interested in appointed office specifically in like city and like counties, and I'm trying to see how you can specifically. I think as an elected official, you've done a great job. You sell yourself. You mention your story. This is how it relates to the work that I do. But how do you do that when you're in you're wanting to be in an appointed position and you don't have that opportunity to share with the community? It's more focused on those elected officials.
You make friends with folks. Like I've got, what city do you live in?
I'm actually from Oxnard.
Oxnard. So Ventura County, I've got, that's Jackie Irwin. That's Jackie Irwin that lives over there. She's the representative over there. But the city of Oxnard and all of these cities have planning commissions, Parks and Rec Commission, all of these different commissions. The problem is that you don't know that they exist, right? So they exist. So you have to go and ask or go online, and they have vacancies and apply. But and so that's the only way you can get notice, because my mom says if you don't ask, the answer is always no. Right? And so apply to a commission, and if they tell you no, apply again. But then that's where you have to be a little bit more proactive and start going to council meetings, start going to school board meetings, start going to water board meetings, and start getting to know who the players are, because that's where the doors are going to open. And once you communicate with those folks, then it'd be easier to say, hey, Nuri Martinez, Nuri Martinez, she's a councilwoman for the city of LA, and say, I would like to be appointed to a commission. But it doesn't happen if you don't know her, right? But if you start regularly visiting, your council, if this is truly what you want, be involved. And being involved doesn't mean you have to, go protest and picket somewhere. Being involved means you go to the council meetings and start learning who's what, because they're the same people. My city managers, it's the same people all the time, right? You know them all by name. We need fresh blood, and that's where you need to be proactive and attend those meetings. But you can also get appointed by the governor, and that's a whole website, and I can help. I make phone calls, and I give letters of recommendation in my fancy letterhead, because there's so many commissions that need young folks. If you don't apply, then I can't help. But if you apply, you call me and you can get my information. I will guarantee you that I will make a call and I will write you a letter of recommendation. Fair? All right. That was a good way to finish.
I know. Thank you very much. Boy, we went way over, but we want to thank you. Obviously, you're very comfortable in the classroom here.
Yes. I wonder if I taught for 16 years.
No, that was perfect. We really appreciate excellent questions by everybody.
Thank you.
I think this is truly why they call it a lunch and learn.
Yes.
Because hopefully everyone learned a lot today. Again, thank you on behalf of the CCMF, City County Management Fellowship, and the School of Public Policy here at Price School at USC. Want to thank you for everything and all the insight, and best of luck.
Yes, thank you very much. And the offer is open to all of you. If you need anything, this is Taylor, but you know how to find me, Blanca Rubio. We all have websites. Find me, and you can call, email. And if you need help with some of those appointments, I am committed, truly. If you need help with a phone call or with a letter of recommendation, I'm more than willing to do it. But you need to do it. You need to let me know. I can't think for you. But anyway, so the offer is open to everybody, not just the young folks. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right.